Welcome to this explainer. Today we're doing a deep dive into the prehistoric world to uncover something that is, honestly, absolutely mind-bending. We're talking about the real biological engineering that allowed dinosaurs to reach those completely impossible sizes. If you've ever stood under a museum skeleton of a massive sauropod and just thought, how in the world did flesh and bone actually support a creature the size of an entire building? Well, you're in the exact right place. We're going to break down the biological secrets of dinosaur gigantism, and then we're going to see how those exact same traits led to one of the most wild evolutionary twists in Earth's history.
So let's just address the giant 80-ton Brachiosaurus in the room right off the bat. For decades, people have looked at these massive land animals and wondered how they didn't just instantly collapse under their own weight. It feels like a glitch in physics, right? And honestly, that widespread confusion led to a really popular but totally flawed myth about Earth's ancient environment.
You might have heard of this one. It's an old hypothesis suggesting that the primordial Earth actually rotated way faster, completing a full day every 4 to 6 hours. The thought process was that this intense spinning created a massive centrifugal force that essentially counteracted gravity. Basically, people assumed there was a low-G environment back then, a literal gravity glitch that let animals grow to these crazy sci-fi proportions.
But, well, when we actually apply the laws of physics to that idea, the math completely falls apart. It all comes down to the square-cube law. Think about it like this. As an animal scales up in size, its total body weight increases by the cube, meaning it gets massively heavier incredibly fast. But its bone strength, that only increases by the square.
Even if we play along and assume the absolute maximum effect of a super-fast rotating Earth, dropping gravity by maybe 5% at the equator, the impact on gigantism is actually tiny. Because of that square-cube law, a 5% drop in gravity would only give you a measly 1.5 to 2% increase in body length. There is just no way that creates an 80-ton giant. Not even close.
And that brings us to the core of what we're talking about today. Dinosaurs did not cheat physics using some weird cosmic loophole. Instead, they achieved this breathtaking level of biological innovation. They literally re-engineered their own anatomy from the inside out to completely shatter the limits of gravity.
To really understand how they pulled this off, we need to look under the hood. There are 4 very specific evolutionary mechanisms that allowed dinosaurs to smash right through the normal limits of terrestrial growth: hollow bones, abandoning chewing, high fertility, and giant fermentation. Let's break them down.
The first massive innovation is the skeletal structure itself. Dinosaurs utilized hollow bones. Just like the steel framework of a modern skyscraper, this internal hollow structure drastically dropped their skeletal weight while perfectly maintaining the rigid, massive frame they needed to hold up tens of tons of muscle.
But here's the really cool part. Those bones weren't just empty air. They were part of a highly complex air sac system. You see, an 80-ton body generates a staggering amount of metabolic heat. Without a way to cool down, a giant animal would literally cook itself from the inside out. These air sacs extended throughout the entire body, constantly pulling in fresh oxygen. It basically acted as an ultra-efficient internal biological cooler to stop them from overheating.
Okay, innovation number 2 is all about extreme energy efficiency. Think about mammals for a second. Elephants, horses, even us. We chew our food. And chewing requires heavy teeth, massive jawbones, and really thick muscles. All that makes the head incredibly heavy, which means your neck has to be short and thick just to hold it up. The sauropods, they completely abandoned chewing. By swallowing their food whole, their head could stay tiny and super lightweight, and that is what unlocked those iconic, incredibly long necks. They could basically park their massive bodies in one spot and just sweep that long neck over a huge area, vacuuming up plants without taking a single step. The energy they saved on just moving around was absolutely massive. Which leads perfectly into innovation number 3, their survival strategy. Usually, being huge comes with a huge extinction risk. A large mammal, like an elephant, carries a single baby for almost 2 years. If the environment changes suddenly, a giant species that breeds that slowly is pretty much doomed. But 80-ton sauropods? They just laid massive clutches of relatively small eggs. I mean, try to picture an elephant popping out 30 eggs at once. It's ridiculous, right? But that's the magic of egg laying. It places almost zero physical burden on the mother. And once those dinosaur hatchlings came out, they used a super fast bird-like metabolism to just explode in size, rocketing out of the easy prey danger zone. That sheer reproductive volume meant they could easily bounce back from environmental disasters that would completely wipe out giant mammals.
And finally, the fourth innovation comes down to diet. Back in the Mesozoic era, super high CO2 levels created this global greenhouse. Ferns and early seed plants were just growing everywhere, completely unchecked. The catch? They were really low in actual nutrients. It was basically prehistoric junk food.
To survive on that, dinosaurs relied on sheer volume. Those giant bodies we've been talking about, their main job was to house incredibly massive intestines. They acted like giant, slow-moving fermentation tanks. They'd swallow all that low-nutrient plant matter whole and just let it slowly ferment inside them. It turned a poor food source into an incredibly efficient, non-stop energy supply.
To really appreciate this biological masterclass, you just have to look at the limits land mammals face today. Mammals basically hit a hard biological wall around 15 to 20 tons. Why? Well, we have heavy heads from chewing, super dense bones filled with marrow, and we completely lack those internal air sacs, meaning the risk of overheating is huge. Add in the crazy cost of carrying a baby for years, and mammalian giants are basically always living on the edge of extinction.
When you put the design philosophies side by side, it makes total sense why the absolute largest extinct land mammals maxed out at around 20 tons. They were literally fighting their own biology. Sauropods, on the other hand, with their hollow bones, egg-laying, and whole swallowing efficiency, just blew right past that, hitting 50, 60, even 80 tons with ease.
So here's the big takeaway from this first half. Dinosaur gigantism wasn't a fluke, it wasn't low gravity, it was a highly optimized biological blueprint. Mammalian design is heavy and high cost. Dinosaur design was the ultimate low-energy, high-efficiency engine.
But right here is where we get the absolute greatest plot twist in evolutionary history. Because nature is the ultimate recycler. That exact same highly specialized biological engine, the one built specifically to sustain 80-ton titans on the ground, was completely repurposed for something else entirely.
It's a phenomenon called acceptation. That's when a trait evolves for one specific reason, but then gets co-opted for a totally new one. All of those brilliant hacks we just talked about, the lightweight hollow bones, the ultra-efficient air sacs for cooling, even the thermal feathers they developed later for insulation, they suddenly found a spectacular new use.
I mean, think about how elegant this is. The hollow bones that originally just reduced a giant's weight, they now provide the ultimate lightweight frame. The air sacs that stopped a massive titanosaur from literally cooking itself, they now supply the massive continuous oxygen flow you need for a high-metabolism aerial engine. Traits strictly evolved to survive as a giant on land were the exact high-output frame needed to finally conquer the sky.
The gigantism of dinosaurs was an anatomical masterpiece, for sure. But the most mind-blowing part is that this incredible lineage didn't just end in the dirt. That anatomy is literally still breathing in the sky today. If they hadn't invented that ultra-lightweight, air-cooled system to become land giants millions of years ago, modern birds simply wouldn't exist. The biology of flight literally required the biology of giants.
So I'll leave you with this. The biological engineering is identical, literally. Only the scale has changed. Every pigeon, sparrow, or eagle you see soaring above you is operating on the exact same high-efficiency framework built by the heaviest creatures to ever walk the planet. Next time you look up, are you just seeing a bird, or are you seeing the ghost of an 80-ton giant? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep looking at the world with that exact same sense of wonder.